everybody, and welcome. We're super excited to have you all join us today for Future Communities, Building the Society of Tomorrow. Obviously, this event is being run as part of the awesome Birmingham Tech Week 2020, which is in association with TechNation, West Midlands Growth Company, and the Department for International Trade. Birmingham Tech Week obviously wants to make sure it thanks its sponsors, without whom this week wouldn't happen, as well as all the fantastic partners that again make sure that Birmingham Tech Week is back for this second year. And we'd like to obviously introduce ourselves in terms of Birmingham Enterprise Community. We're delighted to be back for the second year running at Birmingham Tech Week. Fantastic initiative that we are really pleased to be supporting and taking part in this year. So who are we? My name is Daniel Evans. I am the Chief Executive Officer here at Birmingham Enterprise Community. I'm local, so I'm from Tamworth, just down the road from Birmingham. I graduated out of local universities and of course now work locally as well. I'm also joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Ron Hafal. I am the Chief Operation Manager at Birmingham Enterprise Community. I'm not local, but I came to the UK in 2016. Originally, I'm from Syria. I did my master's at Aston, and right after that, I got involved with the incubators, accelerators in the region. And I love working with startups, entrepreneurs, like-minded people trying to change the future. Here we are, being part of this is what we always love to do.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Amran. We're having to do a bit of muting gymnastics since we're sat next to each other. I'm sure we will manage it. So Birmingham Enterprise Community, I just want to give you a brief context to who we are for anybody that's not heard of us. So Birmingham Enterprise Community is a social enterprise. We are based in the centre of Birmingham, but the work that we do, well, really now is global. Last year, I would have definitely said that we support Midlands-based enterprises, but that's kind of extended a lot further now. Our accelerator program has startups and entrepreneurs from all around the world looking to get involved with the UK and Midlands scene. We like to empower these emerging entrepreneurs through a range of programs, helping them to equip the skills that they need to take these ventures forward from startup all the way through to scale up, help them to connect with resources and have everything they need to make that journey somewhat easier. It's never completely easy, but if we can help a little bit, then we're doing our jobs right. As I mentioned, we did take part in Birmingham Tech Week last year. It was, as any of you that engaged last year know, an awesome experience. Somewhat different this year. So this time last year we were in a lecture theatre at University College Birmingham, whereas of course we can't do that at the moment. And we ran an event called How to Change the World While Studying, where we were joined by a group of student entrepreneurs who were looking at how they could create meaningful impact in the world through the use of tech. Really awesome event. Some fantastic speakers there, some of whom we've gone on to support. Some of the people in attendance as well we've been working with over the past year. And I know a lot of them really got inspired by that event and have taken action since and have really got involved with the community here in the Midlands. So that brings us to today, 1 year on, and for what we see is a continuation of that topic that we ran last year. Very much we were thinking about that initial impact and, you know, what could we do as individuals through entrepreneurship, through technology, in order to create impact in the world around us. The way that we intend to take this one step further today is to actually look at what a vision for the future could be, how technology plays a role in that, and also give you guys a chance to share your thoughts and opinions around that. So in terms of talking about the future, we first need to set a context in terms of what future we're talking about. Where is it that the world wants to get to, is getting to, is going? What are the attributes? Where is that vision for what we want to see? And the really difficult thing here is, of course, depending on who you are, where you're from, what you've been doing, how you view the world, that can look different to different people. But we think that there are several things that I guess we would say the majority of people have in common around this. Some examples of which we can see on screen, and we're going to go into a little bit later on. And one of the things that I guess we are almost using as that vision for the future is this concept of utopia, of this perfect world. It is something that the human race has always strived for. So whether this picture on the left or a slightly more modern take on what utopia could look like on the right, that vision changes over time, and it almost feels that it is a never-ending quest to reach this location. Thomas More, who wrote a book called Utopian, was the first person to coin the phrase utopia a good almost 500 years ago. Said that things will never be perfect until humans are perfect. And he expected that that's not going to happen for a long time. As we said, 500 years later, we're still not perfect. And the question lies here is would we ever be perfect? Can we ever reach a space where humans reach this state where the things that were previously mentioned come true? And one of the questions that we want to ask today is, if that is the case, and humans need to, in order for us to reach utopia or reach this perfect society, humans need to be perfect. We know that that's potentially not feasible, not possible. So how can technology mitigate the flaws that we have in humanity and potentially allow us to reach utopia, this thing that we feel is out of reach and are constantly chasing? So before we start, we just want to lay out some rules. One, we would encourage you all to stay open-minded. It is quite a big topic that we're examining here, where there aren't necessarily right or wrong answers. Number two, we will have time for questions and discussion at the end, and we would love to hear your opinions on this. We really see that the main part of this session is giving you guys the platform to share your thoughts on this. We just wanted to start the session by setting the context of this. But if there's anything that pops into your mind along the way, feel free to use the chat function, share those thoughts and comments and chat along as we move through the session. And number three, very simple, no politics. This is not political, this is apolitical. It is something that goes beyond or above politics. So we will keep thoughts of people like Donald Trump out of the conversation. Just a quick breakdown in terms of what we're going to cover. Firstly, I'm going to speak a little bit about systems, and a little bit, just again for a bit of context. We're then going to look at, I think there's 5 elements that we've proposed of what a future community kind of contains, which Omran's going to take you through. And then finally, we're going to look at a couple of the problems around achieving that, and why that change from where we are now to this thing that we're proposing. Why there's potentially some barriers there that we need to come up with solutions for. So what is a system? So a system is a set of working things acting together as a complete whole, a network, a mechanism. The reason we've highlighted this, and the reason this is important, is because we are dealing with complex and complicated matters that cannot be looked at in isolation. if you think of any social or any economic issue that we are trying to find a solution for today in the world, it is not the case that you can just see that as its own thing and it's about changing that and everything else is fine. The changes to that, it may be that you need to change other parts of the system to get the desired result there. It may be that changing that one part that you think is broken actually just moves the issue to somewhere else. So what we have to do, and what entrepreneurs and innovators really have to do to start moving us towards this future community, is to look at the systems as a whole. And that's where this notion of systemic change comes in. How do we move from the system that we're currently in to a new one where we've eliminated these problems, these underlying problems that we've identified. So again, a couple of things that we just wanted to lay down in terms of what we think this is about, what principles we think there are that underpin this future community that we then want to use to propose a slight model for is the following three things. Number one is that it would be a community, a society, a world where we all are treated the way that we deserve to be treated. Number two, we would get what we want when we need it. And number three, we're looking out for the needs of all. So rather than looking out for the needs of us as individuals, it is about the collective, it is about the community, and it's about the society. So I'm going to quickly pass over to Omran, who is going to take you through the elements of this future community.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen quickly. Okay. As Dan said, now we are just setting a context of something that's going to come in the future, near future, or like the far future, we don't know. So those are the elements that we see. They could be the fundamental of those communities. We can add some to them, maybe take some out. So the first one is we need to leverage data. We're going to be using data alongside all the sectors. Then we're going to be looking at sustainability and using the resources that we have in the optimum ways. Connectivity and integration between the three main pillars that might be for the future communities. There are the civil societies, the governments, and the businesses. Then we're going to look at the citizen advocacy and then how we can decentralization and who could be taking care of such large systems that Dan just talked about. Now we are facing complex problems to solve. You need to look at complex data, analyze it, and get all the resources possible to understand those data. And if we're going to be looking at problems from one angle and collect the data from one angle, we're going to solve a problem from that angle, but we are not solving the whole. And as an example with the pandemic, one of the main issues was looking at the right data. There was a struggle at the beginning of, okay, which data we need to look at so we can take action. Which data we're going to be looking at so we can take action on it. And to highlight this importance, one of the first companies that got funded was the research and data collectors companies. One of the main problems now that most of the data is being collected by the private sector. However, we need that integration between the government and the private sector so we can get a wholesome idea of the problems, the trends, and even prevent problems in the future. Capacity utilization. The idea here, we already have experimented this with the shared economy that we are already using right now, such as Uber or TripAdvisor, where we are all collaborating together to bring value to the societies or the communities we are creating under those platforms. And the idea here, why not, for example, we are creating the prototypes parts of Airjets through the 3D printers That 3D printers, they create prototypes, but at the same time, they can manufacture real parts for people, for example, that need artificial body parts or supporting veterans. So you have a real product serving a certain type of the society or the civil society, at the same time serving the more complex manufacturing sectors. So we need to look at how we can utilize those resources that we have so we can ensure sustainability for the long term and saving the earth resources. Connectivity and integration. Here I would like to, like as an example, we can look at Estonia. So Estonia is now one of the most advanced digital societies in the world. The idea of the connectivity and integration is to provide one access point to data and information for all the sectors and specifically for the civil society. So right now in Estonia, if you have your ID, your digital ID, that digital ID gives you access to the private sector services, to the governmental sectors. Whether you are going to a hospital or you are going to a police station or a library, you're going to be using the same ID. To first, you are having one access point to your data, so it's going to be easily and smoothly. You can retrieve your information, know what you need to know, educate yourself or inform yourself, so you can get involved and engage in decisions that are impacting the whole society around you. So it's breaking those barriers of accessibility for individuals and organizations. Citizen advocacy. Um, uh, to do this, it's going to be all centered around the citizens themselves. So we need to create systems that encourage us as citizens to take actions in our hands of maintaining the pro behaviors, the right behaviors around. We can create peer pressure on those around us to be involved and engage in the right way. And at the same time, this way, we can reduce the pressure on the public sectors and governmental sectors. One of the examples of the integration as well and reducing the pressure on the public service in Estonia, because they have that infrastructure of connectivity. When the pandemic happened, they just added a feature to their platform that 99% of their citizens are using. They added a feature so employees by themselves, they can request a temporary leave, sick leave for themselves. So they reduce the pressure on the nurses and doctors, where all those employees are going to be going to them every time. Right away, the citizen, through the online platform, they were able to get those permissions right away. At the same time, that's on spot, providing data and information on how the virus is going around and the behavior of it for like employability and citizens as a whole. Decentralization, and this is going to be talking later on how this can be part of like the problems that we're going to be facing to decentralize. Decentralization, that means we won't have only the power of making decisions won't be just like for one party or one organization or one sector. We need to be looking at this all together. We need tri-sector leaders to be helping in this. So tri-sectors leaders, going back again, the sectors we're talking about business, civil societies, and governments. Those tri-sector leaders need to have a balanced motivation. So despite what sector they are working on, they need to be looking at making decisions that it's in the benefits of the whole society, not only the benefits of the sector they are in. So they need to manage the energy of the sectors as a collective at the same time as individuals. Humans always are the center of all of this. So the technology is there. The technology is like a vehicle to move from point A to B. However, that vehicle can be dangerous if the driver is not driving responsibly. And here where you can look at all those examples of what we have now about like the machine learning, the artificial intelligence, the robotic, the nanotechnology, biotechnology. It's all there. It's just knowing how we're going to utilize it for the better future and how we can work all together to towards that goal. The problems, engagement. To reach such a utopian society, we need everyone to engage. And we can't just get two sectors and then the rest going to be like they are left out. And engagement as well is going to prevent a lot of bad behaviors in the future. If you look at all the bad behaviors in society, it is fundamentally started because those who did those behaviors, they were isolated from their groups. They were isolated from the involvement in decision making or in the area they are in. So we need engagement from everyone. Education. We are talking about technology. We are talking about something that needs a lot of awareness. So the education here, it's not only to educate civilians. At the same time, we need to educate the organizations, the sectors, the leaders, the managers. So everyone is educated for the best interest. Manipulation is another big thing. So, and we've seen it already, all of us with the social media of how that technology have been used to manipulate the human behavior and our psycho behavior activities. Adaptability, because as Dan said, we need to have one system that connect everyone together. That means we need to make everyone adaptable to a certain systems that merge the similarity between the different systems at the same time, make the differences disappear. And sometimes we need a disruption to do the adaptability. So as you all know, right now we are doing this over Zoom call. Everyone was forced to adapt to Zoom calls, whether it's government, whether it's civil societies or private businesses. We were forced for that adaptability. So we are able to adapt to anything, but it's just, are we willing to, and what can force us to adapt? Power, which is a huge topic of how the power is going to be shifting around. Who's going to give up the power that they have now in place? And I always relate that power to the data. And right now, it's more into the private sector. However, when we are talking about something that big, we need the government involvement, because even if you look at the most important things that we have, internet or the GPS or all of those, they have been developed by governmental funded projects. They were for the defense purposes at the beginning, but now we are using them as civilians. So we need that involvement as well from the government. And then ended it with the stewardship, which is who's going to be taking care of the system, who's going to be holding liable or responsibility of all of that. And this should be shared among all of us. Where do you go from here? So the technology is here, and we are moving really fast toward the future. And again, the pandemic proved that we jumped, we accelerated on multiple levels on how the future might look like. It's about now deciding on how this community looks like, who's going to get involved and who's not, and how to mitigate the danger of the technology as well. Because we are moving fast forward, but we need at the same time to be aware of the negative aspect of what technology might cause. At the end, it's only natural, of course, that each man should think his own opinions is the best. And that's Thomas More, the Utopia. And this is one of our main problems. We all think that we are the best. And we think when we put our opinions out, it is for real. We think that it is the best. We are not pretending that it's the best. We have a belief that it's the best. But how we can give up that and listen to each other to create that great future. So thank you very much for listening, guys. And as Dan said, now it's your time to ask questions what do you think about it? Because we need to engage, listen to each other, and see how the future might look like.
Awesome. I think that this point that Fred has just typed in the chat, and I'd welcome Fred if you had further thoughts to share in this. This very much links. I think the concept of citizen advocacy that we mentioned, where you are incentivizing people to be a part of this thing, and for that pro-social behavior, giving them a reason to do it is vastly important. I guess the question and the problem there is, how do we make sure that doesn't become quite big brother and controlling and those sorts of things? How do we still maintain our privacy through that as well? Any thoughts, Fred?
Well, the shape of communities is definitely changing. I'm involved in a number of different clubs, and I can honestly say the same aspect has occurred on a number of them, that those people that have been willing to go online and adapt to modern technology have been driven forward at an enormously fast pace this year. The changes that have taken place since March have been phenomenally good. But those people that never took on technology have all been left behind. And a lot of them are sitting at home thinking what we're going to do with ourselves.
That's where the education bits comes in, that we need to educate everyone on and involve them all in how they use these technologies. And because we moved, as I said, it was like a phenomenal speed that we moved forward with. It was hard to get everyone involved. So we need to take action now and start involving everyone. So in the future, if something happened like this, everyone can. We don't want people sitting at home, because even the educated people, even who's using all the technology now, they've been impacted mentally and like their well-being of just staying at home, isolated, not engaged.
And I think just to add to that, and maybe a slight step before education, is actually accessibility. One of the big things that the pandemic has thrown up, especially in the UK, is access to even just a computer at home with internet. For a lot of children, they've missed out because they don't have that access still. So how do we make technology, completely accessible? It's getting to the point where many regard access to the internet as a human right. So how do we treat that in the same way that we would treat making sure people have clean drinking water and sanitation?
I find there's been some fantastic sort of assessments going on. Now, at the moment, there's more mobile phones in the world than there are people. The problem is that people have got lots of stuff there that's well outdated. And if you actually ask people to go onto their smartphones, there's a lot of people that haven't got a smartphone. They're using an old Nokia brick or something like that. It does the job, and that's what they think they're going to use. The other thing is that I'm on a platform at the moment that actually says we cannot use any technology that was built before 2015, because with Apple equipment, it needs iOS updates, and of course, it doesn't take it. So people have got surplus equipment, and a lot of it doesn't work. And you therefore can't get to these people because they find it so difficult.
Completely agree. There's a lot that needs to be, and from a sustainability point of view, we're in a situation where mentioning Apple, they release a new one of these every year, and it's maybe a slightly better camera, slightly better screen. What good does that do to the rest of society? I just want to pick up on Max has asked a question here in terms of how do you think the reduction of working hours is part of the future vision? Would you support a 4-day working week? I would love to know if anybody's got any thoughts on this. I think that I remember my parents telling me before that when they were growing up, it was always said that in the future you would have tons of leisure time. You wouldn't have to work much, and obviously people are in a lot of ways working more now than ever. Does anybody want to share some thoughts on that?
Well, I'm gonna share then about my thoughts. Actually, when the lockdown started, we found out that our productivity increased in a way that we didn't even expect it. Uh, and w Working less doesn't mean that we are not providing the right amount of value or efficiency, because right now the world is more going towards I'm paying you for the value you are providing, and I'm not paying for the hours you are working for me at this time. And I don't think we're gonna get everyone to do the 4 days anytime soon, but I think a lot more companies gonna be now looking at, okay, 5 days a week, you can work 4 days at the office or 3 days at the office, and 2 days you can just work from home or wherever you want. You don't have to be at the office all the time. Um, but at the end, in the future, I think we're going to work less, because with the technology development, the technology is going to be doing a lot of the work that we are doing. And that I think might contribute to, yes, we might be working 4 days.
And again, I think that if this is a society that provides everybody with what they need, what is the shape of that? Is that saying that if you don't work, you're still going to get those things you need? Is it a case, a lot of countries now have started to experiment with a basic income, and seeing what effect that has on a society. We've seen policies before where the fact that you could maybe go out, work your way up, start your own business, make a lot of private gain, is meant to act as an incentive to encourage people to go and work and be productive. Any thoughts?
Well, I'd have thought that the way that society has changed, if you went back 30 years from now, the shops never opened on a Sunday. That was always family time. People were clocking in and clocking out of factories. In the evenings, that was family time and it was gardening time. It was a much more structured society, and a lot of people had less pressure on them because they felt in their leisure time, it was actually leisure time. And I think it doesn't matter what happens now, it's a 24-hour society and there's emails and text messages coming in day and night.
Yeah, hugely. I think if you go to, well, even not in major cities now, in towns, you can be out and about. You go to Asda at 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. There's people doing the shopping. I've been guilty of sending emails, late in early hours in the morning and getting a response early hours in the morning. As you said, weekends the same. Anything you want to add there on that?
No, I think this is one of the major issues we are facing, and I agree 100% with you, Fred, that we became too much drawn into the business side of our life. We are forgetting that human aspect of, because especially you mentioned the family and the time of the family. This is the time to do gardening. Our relationships are getting somehow impacted and destroyed by the technology, and that's why I think by the technology, because we are not using it the right way. And this is one of the negative things that we need to be really aware of. But 100%, I think it's one of the major problems we are facing now as a society.
There was something I was going to add there and it escaped my mind. Fred, were you going to say something?
I was going to share a thought that I heard actually in a talk when we could go to talks and presentations. It was a guy just basically talking about the amount of data that's being produced around the world now. And there's a phenomenal amount of data. The problem is it needs to be translated into information. When you've got to information stage, you've got to then have the knowledge of what to do with the information. And so you've got 3 levels before you start. But the ultimate level everyone's trying to get to is have enough wisdom to know what knowledge is useful and what knowledge isn't, because the state of the world at the moment is that you can look up anything on the internet, you'll get conflicting views all over the place, and you've got to have some experience, as it were, to translate it.
Yeah, I think that's massively true, and that's why we definitely proposed data and leveraging data as such a core part of this future community. You look at the figures in terms of the volume of data that passes along through the internet every day, and it's absolutely mind-blowing. That's where especially a lot of the information-powered technologies like machine learning, artificial intelligence, why we are getting there with them is obviously because of the amount of data there. How do we, as you said, harness that then, decide what's useful, what's not useful? There is the danger and I guess one of the problems that we've seen is that manipulation of the technology. How do we know what is useful and not in terms of from a perspective of look back to I know we said no politics, but just as an example, 2016 elections where we saw social media being wielded as a weapon. Same with COVID now, we see social media being used to put out a message in the same way that in World War II they would drop flyers over France to encourage people to join the resistance. Same thing, but different means. I'm just having a look at the comments in the chat. Very interesting talk, guys. Some of the views that our company is actually experiencing. We managed to revolutionize with the software the automotive market, in particular, engineering aspect. And now what is done in 3 to 6 months, you can do with us in 60 seconds, which is a phenomenal time saving. Many engineers see this as they're losing their jobs instead of seeing the real world benefit as they make things way quicker than before. Again, what we saw in terms of the barriers around power, one of the biggest barriers to change in any context is people fearing a loss of power or a loss of identity, a loss of purpose.
Well, an example of this issue, because I agree when you said people's going to be afraid of losing their job because of technology or the advance in the technology. You look at what's in Akron in the US. So you have the Rust Belt, where it's like a former industrial place that have been left by itself to just like get forgotten, have been transformed to what's called Brain Belt, where basically you get those laborers and those this human power, and you merge it with the advanced technology, like what General Electric's done. And then utilizing those two resources, you can develop more efficient solution. You can find a solution for challenges. You might predict the future and what can be going on. However, that's need an innovation policy. And then we need to look at who is willing to contribute to that innovation policy. Again, it goes to the three sectors: businesses as a private sector, government, and the civil society. And this is part of the solution of what you're saying of there's a lot of people are afraid of losing their jobs because of the technological advance we're facing.
That's super interesting. Does anybody else have any questions they want to propose to people? Any thoughts they want to share? Anything else?
I think there's a bit of a disengagement at the moment for a number of different reasons. Obviously, there's a lot of changes going on in society. But the one thing that worries me the most is the engagement of the young people, because certainly the ones that are at the lower end of the age range have less baggage to carry. They have less encumbrances around them. And quite honestly, I think we ought to be looking to the next generation, as it were, to be stimulating a lot of the stuff that's going on. And I can only say that at the moment, the schools, I think some of them have done a phenomenal job over the summertime of actually engaging the kids to actually develop apps, to look at different ways of doing things, how they can work with their families, and how they can work with the schools to actually get better education.
I had a conversation with a headmaster in Birmingham only a couple of weeks ago of Central Academy. And he was saying, very much on his mind now is questioning the curriculum that it stands in terms of how it stood for a very long time about what schools teach and how they teach it versus what we actually need for the future. Technology is such an important skill to be learning. From our perspective as well, and something he shared is entrepreneurship as well, is that ability to be adaptable, flexible, to be able to respond to challenges and find solutions, because the only thing that we can say is certain about the future is uncertainty, is we know that we don't really know what's going to go on. So if we can teach people to thrive in those situations and to excel in those situations, it gives them the best chance. I completely agree. It's going to be their world to build and figure out. So it's a responsibility of the previous generation to equip them with that, to tackle that. Yeah, that is super interesting. Anybody else on final thoughts? I know you're all probably sitting there taking this all in, and again, it's such a huge topic. There's so many elements to it. But of course, if you want to share anything, then here is your chance to share. Any closing thoughts from you on them?
I would say we are able to do whatever we want, and like as a human beings, we always strive to move forward and create new things and innovate. I would say thinking about future communities and how they would like, that's an amazing thing. But we need to look at it as what is the long-term impacts of those stuff, and how we can encourage everyone to get involved, how we can put our ego aside, our individual benefits aside, and think about the future as a collective, as societies, not only in countries, but and even like as a global, how we can change, how we can utilize what we have, because there is no way that one country can have all the resources needed, something like this. We need collective effort of all, of a diverse community from around the world.
And I think the final from me, it's something that we mentioned in the slides, but I will say it again, is these technologies that power this future in terms of allowing citizens to become advocates and fully engaged, being able to process and use that data, creating a seamless experience through life, and blending both the physical and digital worlds. This technology is here. What needs to happen next is that we actually decide how it is we want to use it, how we want to structure that system, because it is the system that, as we said, has got to change. But the only thing that's stopping us from really unleashing this is those problems of humanity and us deciding what it is that we want for the future.
Just touching on what Fred just said, like that in this digital world, boundaries are disappearing, and that's true. And we've experienced this through our engagement with other entrepreneurs and startups. So we were doing more of the local startups, but when the pandemic happened, now we have people from all around the world, Asia, US, Mediterranean, Europe, all together on one screen, sharing and bouncing great ideas. And you can see the similarities of the pain points between each other and how each other solve it.
And we see, it very possible now when businesses start to become global from day one. This whole born global concept is again a reality. One, just because of the scalability of the technology. We can reach anybody from anywhere in the world sat here at our laptops. But two, I guess, as Fred said, as Omran said, around those boundaries disappearing, we're seeing overlaps between culture now, because there are a lot more shared experiences that we have across the world than we had before. So whereas before, if I make a product here and then I'm going to export that to maybe China or Japan, or the adaptations that I need to make are huge. Whereas the more that these we kind of develop this global culture, and I design my product to fit in with that global culture, the easier it is for it to move from country to country to country without adaptations, which increases that speed phenomenally. Just a few more thoughts flooding in on that. Susu, I think technology products and services should be easier to use and more user-friendly, rather than people having to struggle to adapt to the tools. Massively, and that's obviously the job of product designers. Should be to make it that it is as easy as possible. It also goes with that seamless experience. So we see it, and smartphones try to do it a lot, in terms of when you think that you should swipe something, you find that you swipe it and it does that, or making a pinching or pressing on something. But how do we carry those same functions over multiple technologies, multiple platforms, so that when we do something innately, it does what we think it's going to do, rather than something completely different. And next thought on there as well: when decentralized blockchain systems will replace banks, third-party traditional systems, we will be able to develop the future its real potential without the constraints imposed by the banking game. And I think that extends beyond banking as well. So obviously decentralized ledgers, blockchains, this notion that we've mentioned in terms of decentralizing decision making and the way that things are designed, that is potentially a technology that can help to power that. Because I guess two of the things that we struggle with there is we've seen it actually with the pandemic again, very current topic, but let's use it. A few people that have not wanted to do the track and trace, because again, data to the government, people tracking them, people following their movements, the worries about privacy. Obviously, there's potential there for ledger technology to remove that, decentralize that, allow us to be part of something that works seamlessly, but also keep our privacy as well. And I think that's a really important issue to look at as well. Any very final thoughts? If there's nothing else, then what we will do is we will leave you all to enjoy your evenings. Fred, you might want to add something.
Well, I'd like just to say that these forums have been taking place all this week, and have been taking place on so many different levels now. Zoom, Teams, all the different stuff that's going on. It's actually building communities in a completely different way. There's a digital community, not just a local community of people you know.
100%. I think that's a fantastic place to finish this, because that's exactly why organisations like Birmingham Tech Week run these things, is to bring people together, unite people together, share ideas and collaborate. And again, Birmingham Enterprise Community, the organisation we are, that's our primary reason for existence as well. So there's a video being shared on the chat there. Obviously, if you're interested, go and have a look. Thank you very much again. We really appreciate you all spending this time with us today. Hope you are enjoying Birmingham Tech Week. Definitely go on and check the rest of the events out. There's some great stuff coming up. This has been recorded and will be on our YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch the talk and think over it again. If you want to continue the conversation, if you want to get in touch and find out more, just contact us on hello@birminghamenterprisecommunity.co.uk. More than happy.
Thank you very much, guys, for joining us today. We really enjoyed this talk and hope you enjoyed it as well with us. And as Dan said, if you would like to talk about this, or if there's any way that Birmingham Enterprise community can help, do not hesitate to reach out to us, whether through the email that Dan mentioned or our website, birminghaменterprisecommunity.co.uk. Thank you very much, all. Enjoy your evening.
Thanks, everybody.